For 7 years, I poured every ounce of myself, every dollar I made, into her dream of becoming a doctor. I worked 2 jobs so she wouldn't have to. I held her when she broke down over organic chemistry and 36-hour shifts. I really, truly believed in us. But the second she got that white coat, she left me for a rich surgeon without even looking back. She told me I was just a chapter in her life, one that was now over, a stepping stone. She thought she was upgrading, but she had no idea that a dusty, forgotten letter from my grandmother was about to change everything. This is the story of how she used me and how I found out what I was really worth. Our story started like a lot of them do, in a crowded university library. Her name was Clara, and she just had this light about her. When she talked about medicine, it wasn't just a career, it was a fire in her soul. She wanted to heal people. I was a literature major, a sucker for a good story, and hers was the best one I'd ever heard. I think I fell in love with her ambition before I even fell in love with her. My own dreams were quieter. I wanted to open a small woodworking shop, build things with my hands, and create a life that was steady and true. But her dream was a wildfire, and I couldn't help but get drawn into the warmth. We weren't just a couple. We were a team. We even made a pact over cheap pizza in our tiny apartment. Her dream was bigger and needed a massive head start, so we agreed everything went to getting her through med school first. All our time, all our money. Once she was a doctor, then it would be my turn. I'd start my business and she'd be my cheerleader. It felt fair. It felt like a plan. It felt like us against the world. And man, I leaned in. I leaned in so hard, I forgot where I ended and her dream began. I dropped my classes to part-time, then dropped out altogether, telling myself it was just for a little while. I picked up a second job, working days loading trucks in a warehouse until my back ached, and nights waiting tables, smiling through the bone-deep exhaustion. My world became all about her ambition. I sold my car, a beat-up old sedan that I loved, just to help pay for her MCAT prep course. We moved into an apartment that was basically a closet with a window because it was cheaper, and every dollar saved went to her tuition. My hands, which used to just turn pages, got rough and calloused from the work. The physical toll was real. A dull, constant ache settled into my lower back, but I just pushed it down. There was no time or money for me to see a doctor. Every spare cent was for her tuition. But in those early years, it all felt worth it. The sacrifice felt like an investment. I'd come home smelling of sweat and sawdust and find her passed out on a pile of textbooks. I'd quietly make her dinner and wake her up to eat. I spent hours quizzing her on anatomy, butchering the names of diseases, while she'd laugh, correct me, and then kiss me. "I couldn't do this without you," she'd say, her head on my shoulder. In those moments, every aching muscle, every single sacrifice felt like the best deal I'd ever made. We were building our forever, or so I thought. I believed that with my whole heart. The change was subtle at first. You could barely feel it. It started around her 3rd year of med school and got faster during her residency. The woman who saw us as a team started seeing the world as a ladder. And slowly, the word us got replaced with the word I. She started talking less about healing people and more about the lifestyle. Her stories were suddenly full of new names, surgeons, specialists, and what kind of cars they drove, where they vacationed, the size of their houses. One name that kept popping up was Dr. Sterling, some charismatic heart surgeon. She'd talk about his brilliant hands in one breath and his tailored Italian suits in the next. I just thought she was impressed, like a student looks up to a mentor. I didn't see that she was drawing up a blueprint for a future that didn't include me. Then came the little dismissals. My world, the world that was paying for her success, started to become an embarrassment. She'd stop asking about my day, her eyes glazing over if I mentioned a tough shift at the warehouse. Then she stopped inviting me to hospital functions. "It's just a bunch of boring networking stuff," she'd say. "You'd hate it." But it stung. One evening, I came home early, my hands filthy and a rip in my work jeans. She was on a video call with some new, polished friends from residency. I walked in to say hi, and I saw her face flash with something I'd never seen aimed at me before: shame. She angled the laptop away, mumbling, "Oh, that's just Alex. He's, home." The way she said it, it was like I was a piece of furniture. Later that night, she looked at my hands, the same hands that paid for her books, that rubbed her shoulders, and she winced. "You should really get some lotion for those," she said, her voice sounding like a doctor diagnosing a problem. "They look so rough." The sacrifices I made were no longer our shared struggle. They were signs that I was beneath her. The back pain I never mentioned, the exhaustion I lived with, it didn't make me noble in her eyes, it just made me less. I remember she got invited to a fancy hospital gala. I said I'd rent a tux, that I'd love to go. She shut it down, gently but firmly. "Alex, everyone there is a doctor. The talk is all hospital politics. You just feel out of place." She framed it like she was protecting me, but it felt like she was putting me in quarantine, away from her shiny new life. The final warning sign was Dr. Sterling. She started calling him Mark. She'd tell me about little compliments he'd give her, his jokes, his advice. She was being pulled into his orbit, and I wasn't her son anymore. I was just a distant, fading star. I tried to talk to her to ask if we were okay. She'd just sigh. "You're overthinking it, Alex. We're just both stressed. It's fine." But it wasn't fine. The foundation was cracking, and I was the only one who felt the shaking. I kept telling myself to just hold on until she graduated. I didn't realize she'd already crossed the finish line without me. The next few weeks were just a gray, hazy blur. Packing my stuff out of that apartment felt like digging up a grave. Every little thing, the worn-out chair she studied in, a photo of us from college, was an artifact from a life that turned out to be a lie. I moved into a sad little room across town that felt as hollow as I did. My back, which I'd ignored for years, was suddenly screaming in pain. It was like a physical reminder of her betrayal. I'd wrecked my body for her dream, and all I got were scars, inside and out. I was completely lost. For 7 years, my whole identity was being Clara's boyfriend. My purpose was her purpose. Without that, who was I? I felt like a ghost. The humiliation was constant. I could just hear her telling the story to her new rich friends, painting me as the simple, sweet guy she had to leave behind to fulfill her destiny. I was just a footnote in her story. One rainy Saturday, I was at the bottom of the last box of my things. Tucked inside an old book, there was a letter from my grandmother. She passed away 3 years ago. I saw her handwriting and a lump formed in my throat. She had given it to me and said, "Open this when you feel truly lost." I had never felt more lost in my entire life. My hands were shaking as I opened it. It wasn't a long letter. She wrote about watching me grow up, about my kindness, and then she wrote the words that hit me like a ton of bricks. "My dearest Alex," it read, "you pour your heart into others, and that is your greatest gift. But never forget, you are not a stepping stone for someone else's journey. You're not a bridge for someone to cross on their way to greatness. You're meant to find someone to rise with. Your worth isn't in what you sacrifice, it's in who you are. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small for having a big heart. Reading that, I just broke. I sobbed for the years I lost, for the anger, for the betrayal. But after the tears, something else started to surface. A little bit of clarity. My grandmother was right. I had let myself become a stepping stone. I let Clara's dream swallow my own self-worth. Her betrayal was the wound, but my grandmother's letter was the map. It showed me a way forward, not back to Clara, but back to myself. If you've ever had a moment like that, a piece of advice or a memory that just changed everything and helped you find your way, I'd be honored if you shared it in the comments. Your stories are a reminder that none of us are alone in this. That letter was my anchor. It wasn't an overnight change, but it was a real one. I stopped seeing myself as her victim and started seeing myself as a man who got a second chance. First thing I did, I quit that second job. The relief was instant. With the extra time, I finally went to a physical therapist for my back. Taking care of my body started to feel like I was healing my soul, too. Then I took a small step towards my old dream. I signed up for a business class at the community college. I started spending weekends at a local wood shop, and the smell of sawdust felt like coming home. The calloused hands she looked down on were now creating things for me. I started small, custom bookshelves, coffee tables, and posted my work online. To my surprise, orders started trickling in. It wasn't much at first, but it was mine. Every piece I finished was like rebuilding my own foundation. My side hustle slowly became a real business. About a year later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was Clara. Her voice sounded shaky, nothing like the cold, confident woman I remembered. She asked to meet for coffee. I was curious, so I said yes. She looked different. The shine was gone. She was stressed and tired. Her life with the surgeon, she said, wasn't a partnership. She was his trophy, and he was controlling. She had seen my business online and said she was proud of me. And then she said it. I made a terrible mistake, Alex. I was so arrogant. I threw away the only real thing I ever had. She reached across the table, her eyes pleading. Can we, I don't know, find our way back? I miss us. A year ago, I would have clung to those words like a lifeline. But now, they were just an echo from another lifetime. I looked at her and didn't feel anger. I just felt peace. I've moved on, Clara, I said, and my voice was steady. I told her I wasn't bitter, that in a weird way, I was grateful for the lesson. I told her my grandmother told me I was meant to find someone to rise with, not someone to carry. You saw me as a stepping stone. I've learned I deserve to be seen as the destination. I wish you well, I really do, but my life is mine. I stood up, left the 10 on the table for our coffees, and walked out. I didn't look back. It wasn't revenge, it was self-preservation. Her apology was about her, not me, and my future wasn't her business anymore. That betrayal was the most painful thing I've ever gone through, but it was also the thing that forced me to be reborn. It made me see that I had completely erased myself for someone else's dream. I learned that your value isn't based on how useful you are to other people. It's just in you. You are not a stepping stone, you're not a chapter, and you're not a means to an end. You are the whole story. Losing the future I thought I wanted was the only way I could have ever built the life I actually deserved. And for that, in the end, I'm grateful. Thank you for listening to my story. If this resonated with you, please think about subscribing for more stories about overcoming life's challenges. And if you know someone who's feeling a little lost right now, please share this with them. You never know who needs to hear that they are the whole story.